Hello and welcome to my review of Pet Sematary by Stephen King. As you can see, here's my copy, hardcover. I always go with hardcover, but I also listen to the audiobook so that I can listen to the story at a decent enough pace because I am a slow reader. Now, I know this is going to be kind of similar to my video game reviews, or I still need to actually be playing video games to do video game reviews, but I'm going to stick with this kind of format for my book reviews. Whether this ends up being a podcast or just stays in the video format is up in the air. But I did find another way to rate these books. I don't know why I didn't buy it, but I did take a picture. It's called Tiny Book Review. Now, it has 5 categories, which is what I wanted to stick with. And it's actually way better than the categories that I came up with. As an example, let me go back to my previous review. So the 5 categories for my review was premise, story, characters, rating for what it is. Like, this is a horror book. This is a light RPG. This is a romance. This is a fantasy, what have you. Like, as far as in its category, where does it stack up? And expectations, my expectations for the book going in. And I found that premise and expectation are kind of the same thing. But the tiny book review that I found, I think it was at Barnes & Noble or Half Price Books is one of them. Pretty sure it's Barnes & Noble. The 5 categories that it has there is actually writing style, character development, plot and pacing, lasting impression, and rating. And I find that to be way more accurate to what I want to come out from these book reviews. Now, the rating for Tiny Book Review is a number of stars out of 5. So if I give a category for writing style 4 out of 5, that would be the rating style that it has here on the picture that I took. But my rating is a little bit different. I like to add them all together, multiply it by 2, and that'll be the final rating for the entire book. Out of 100. I know people like the 5-star ratings, but my ratings are going to be out of 100 total. There's a method to the madness. Now, just to get it out of the way, I like to put my rating front and center so that you know where the book stands, as if you just want my rating. And then for the rest of the video or the audio, it will be a review of the plot. I try to do it chapter by chapter, but if the wiki doesn't have chapter by chapter and it just has a full plot review, I will read the full plot, put in my 2 cents every now and then. So with all that being said, here is the final standing for my review of Stephen King's Pet Sematary. I don't know if I showed my copy, but it's this one with the tabby cat. It looks like the cat from the original movie from Stephen for Pet Sematary. I did watch that after I finished the book, and I'll talk about it a little bit. And I kind of only watched half of the 2019 remake of Pet Sematary, which I'm surprised there's only 2. I thought there was more. And I'll also talk about Carrie, which is the next book that I'm going to be reviewing. But before I get too into the weeds, here is my review for it as far as Tiny Book Review goes. Writing style. So for writing style, I gave it an 8 out of 10 because it is Stephen King. All right, he's a great writer, 10 out of 10 writer. He's renowned all over the world. He has fans everywhere, subreddit, all of that. I think he's a great writer, but some of his tangents throw me off. It also, to be fair, it could be because of the audiobook, which was narrated by Michael C. Hall, Dexter himself, and I feel like it added to the experience. Like, to have Dexter narrate, every time he would say tonight, I would always think of the meme where tonight's the night. It'll happen again and again. It was a good pacing for it, the writing style. And he's really, really good at getting into the mentality of these characters, which is really hard to put in a movie. You can't get the thoughts, what they're feeling, why they're doing their actions, why they're feeling a certain way. but in the same sense, he'll go too into the thoughts and too into tangents. Like, I was expecting a few pages to be in a critical moment. Also, I forgot. I will try to keep the first part, as far as the review, spoiler free. And then when I get into the plot, then it'll be full spoilers. So for right now, you're good. Spoiler free for right now. I'll let you know when I go into spoilers. But as far as the tangents, he goes into a tangent for like 2 pages at one point, and at a pivotal moment, I believe is the word I'm trying to say. It's like a paragraph, and I almost missed it because I think I might have been listening to it. So I had to go back a few times to hear if he actually did the thing he was said he was going to do. That's a paragraph, but then a daydream, right, will be 2 paragraphs that has, yes, it adds to the story, but at the same time, I feel like could have been edited out. But just the way he writes dread, horror, regret, mourning, all of that is just spot on. Character development. It's a horror kind of book. This doesn't really have development. It has a bit of a regression, and that's part of the story. Like why people do what they do and the mistakes or the consequences that come from it. So in that sense, character development is really good. And I just because they regressed a little bit and there's uh one main character, or there's several characters actually, they don't really, it's way grounded, so they don't do a lot of crazy stuff. I'm thinking too into it, where I think they should be heroes and they're not heroes, they're people and the mistakes that they make. So for character development, I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. So writing style is an 8 out of 10. Character development is a 7.5 out of 10. Now for the category of plot and pacing. The plot is really good. Um, it's Stephen King, so the premise is going to be that it's a Stephen King book and everybody knows Pet Sematary. The pacing and the plot for the actual book is fairly well. Not middle ground, but like it's like a decent amount of pacing. It's like a light jog compared to a sprint and then a walk and then a sprint. It's like a jog throughout the whole book. So for that, I gave the plot and pace a 7 out of 10. Next category is going to be lasting impression or impact that the book had. And I kind of do a rummage around the Stephen King subreddit, and I didn't know that Stephen King, like, people say that he has an issue with endings, and this ended like fairly okay. But now that I had time to digest it, and it's been like almost a week since I finished the book, it's given it time to digest and get that lasting impression. Usually, if I don't like just have like an hour to sit on it myself. And really, I think it is the ending. I won't spoil anything right now, but the ending kind of felt like the ending to a Goosebumps uh, episode, because I haven't read any of the books. It felt like the ending to a Goosebumps episode. But other than that, it was really good lasting impression, especially when you think about the dreadful scenes. I'm not spoiling anything right now, but it does have a lasting impression. Not as much as I'd expect, so I gave it a 8.5 for that. And then last category is just rating, my personal rating. For this book, pacing, I like a faster paced book. That may be because I'm relatively new to reading and I'm trying to like find my pace when it comes to reading, but I did find this. I did like this book. I gave it personally a 7 out of 10, right? Like me personally, like straight out, it's a 7 out of 10 book for me, which does reflect in the final result. So the final result, I added everything up out of 10, which gave me a 38, multiplied that by 2, and it gives me a 76 overall, which I find it very, very fair. So that's it for the final review. Final score is going to be a 76 out of 100, 76% type of book. Now that we got the rating out of the way, I am going to be going into spoilers for the entire book. If you do not want to be spoiled, go ahead and click off. Come back when you finish reading it or rereading it. I mean, if you're rereading it, you already know what happens. But now I am going to go into the full plot. I'm going to be reading the plot from Stephen King Wiki, and spoilers ahead. And also spoilers for the first movie, because I didn't finish the 2019 movie because they already changed a bunch of stuff. I probably will finish it eventually. Maybe I'll touch on it on the next Stephen King book that I read. But here's the plot, straight out from Wiki. Lewis Creed, a doctor from Chicago, moves to Ludlow, Maine with his family, his wife Rachel, their two young children, Eileen and Gage, and Ellie's cat Winston Churchill. Their new house is just outside of Ludlow. Their neighbor, an elderly man named Judd Crandall, warns Lewis and Rachel about the highway that runs past their house, as it is used by 18-wheeler Orenco trucks that come mostly from a nearby chemical plant and often pass at high speeds. Now, I love the wiki because it has these highlighted names and items that you can click and potentially see fan art or get additional information of that character. I'm not, just to be on the safe side, I'm not going to click on anything until I've pretty much read the majority, which is going to be a long time, but I'm probably not going to click on anything in case there's like connections to other books, because I know there's a Stephen King universe and things are fairly connected, so some things might spoil others. So I'm not going to click it if I absolutely have no idea what it is or what it's talking about. Then yes, I'll click on it, but for now, I should be fine. So Lewis Creed, first impression and impression throughout the book is how relatable he is. I'm not a doctor, but the way he speaks about death and the reality of how people think and the mentality of what happens and how you should process it, I feel like it's very similar to how I would think of it. And if it's similar to how I would think of it, it's probably a basic thought where it's not uncommon for people to think the same way. I mean, Stephen King became such a popular author for a reason. Rachel, at first she was like very whiny, and I found her annoying a little bit, but then when it came later on when she was talking about her sister and all of that, I was like, oh, that makes sense. Eileen, Ellie, she's just a little kid, so is Gage. For the movie I think changed her name to something else. Eleanor? I don't know. But that one and the 2019 movie, they both changed her names. I don't know why they changed her name. Eileen is fine, and it's not far off to just call her Ellie, because it's just a nickname. I don't know what was she 12 or 8? I don't know what 8-year-old or 12-year-old is calling their cat Winston Churchill. I mean, their dad is a doctor, so they probably read or talked about it somewhere. Maybe in the book they describe how they came up with the name, but I don't remember. And then Judd Crandall. I had a picture of him in my mind, and when I saw the original Pet Sematary, it was exactly, pretty much almost spot on exactly how I pictured him, probably not as tall. And then with the new Pet Sematary, the 2019, which I thought I was going to like, they got, what's his name? The Trinity Killer from Dexter, the guy that's going to play the new Dumbledore. I was like, I can see how he got casted for that. And they probably did the whole remake just so he can be Judd Crandall. But even then, Judd Crandall, in the 2019 one, the reason why I didn't like it too much is because he was a little bit too aggressive. But the old one, the original Pet Sematary movie, fairly spot on. He is my Judd Crandall. Judd and Lewis become friends since Lewis' father died when he was 3. A little detail I kind of missed. His relationship with Judd takes on a father-son dimension. A few weeks after the Creeds move in, Judd takes the family on a walk in the woods behind their home. This is where the pacing of the movie kind of like kicks into high gear, because I'm pretty sure it was in the same day where Judd takes them to go see the Pet Sematary. I forget. In the newer movie, E- Ellie just straight up goes and sees it. But I'm gonna try to not talk too much about the movie. Just stick to the book. A well tended path leads to a pet cemetery. The sign above it is misspelled pet cemetery with an S instead of a C. Their children, or where the children of the town bury their deceased animals, most of them pet dogs and cats killed by the trucks on the road. And talking about the trucks real quick on the road, I thought since they were coming from a chemical plant that the chemical plant is what is seeping into the cemetery, and that's what's causing these people to come in. I thought it was going to be a semi kind of sci-fi ish reason to why people that get buried in the pet cemetery come back from the dead, but no, it's a supernatural Indian tribe kind of deal, kind of like the movie Poltergeist. Poltergeist? Pretty sure I got the right movie. So literally, the 18 wheelers could have been anything. It could have been like an Amazon back in the day, or like a warehouse distributor or something, or cement or logs. Where logs would have made more sense because it's a wooded area. But no, chemical plant. Chemical plant has nothing to do with the reason why people are coming back from the dead. A heated argument erupts between Lewis and Rachel the next day. Rachel disapproves of discussing death, and she worries about how Ellie might be affected by what she saw at the cemetery. So at first, I didn't remember if Judd just straight up takes them up the path without telling them what it was, but he does. Somebody, I think Ellie said that somebody told her that that path leads to a pet cemetery, and it said in the book that she tells her mom, and Judd was going to go take her to go see it. And in the book, it goes, Judd goes to the parents and be like, hey, do you guys want to come? Like, they were just going to straight up let this person go with a stranger. And I know things were different back in the 70s when it was written, but my daughter's not going anywhere without my permission, without exactly, I mean, that's just me being a new parent and whatnot, but yes, if your child is going to go to a pet cemetery, you as a parent would probably want to go with her so that you can discuss death. And especially if you have a regressed trauma or just straight up trauma about death, I'm surprised that Rachel wasn't putting up more of a fight or an argument as to having Ellie go in the first place. But I digress. Yeah, it is later revealed from the wiki, it is later revealed that Rachel was traumatized by the early death of her sister. Now, this is where I will talk about the old movie, because I thought it was it was an older sister, but I thought they were younger than what they were in the book. In the book, the older sister straight up looks like a older women. I don't know if it's the thing where the 70s where they had grown ass people playing high school people. Maybe she was in high school, but I thought she was she should have been like played by a younger person because they did have a younger actress for Rachel. Traumatized by the death of her sister Zelda from spinal meningitis. As her sister grew more deformed and mentally unstable from the disease, she began to lash out at her family, eventually dying in the back room of their home. Lewis notes that Rachel's parents had never thought to hire a professional nurse to tend to Zelda, which is true because the big freaking the dad Irwin, whatever his name was, he was big dick swinging. I can have my checkbook and sign everything, but you couldn't buy a fucking nurse, dude, for your parent that or your daughter that is dying of spinal meningitis in the back, and you're having your other younger daughter take care of her while you guys go to bumfuck nowhere and who knows what the hell you were doing. That pissed me off. And I like how Lewis has a lot of good points when it says like, hey, they should have never left you alone. They should have hired a nurse. They shouldn't have let you do all that. You shouldn't have experienced that. And I would have thrown that shit at Irwin's face. Every time Irwin starts talking shit, I'm like, hey, didn't you let your daughter die without any help whatsoever and kept her in the back like a dirty, dirty secret, you son of a bitch? That pissed me off. Like I would have thrown that shit at his face way more than than Lewis. I don't think he even brought it up to him, especially uh, spoilers. I mean, we're already in spoiler territory in the funeral. Like the fuck. Professional nurse turns to Zelda. He wonders whether they what. Whoa. He wonders whether they did not because they did not want to spend the money. Fucker, he supposedly had the money. He was trying to write off. He was trying to like write a check for Lois to take off to not date the daughter Rachel, or had been too proud, or yeah, there you go, or have been too proud or ashamed of their stricken daughter to do so. Rachel had been left alone by her parents to take care of her unstable sister the night Zelda died, and the experience scarred her for life. Lewis himself, whose own relationship with his in laws is already very strained, is furious at the thought of Rachel's parents' neglect. Wanting genuinely to support Rachel, he promised to seek a better understanding of Rachel's attitude towards death. And this part, I'm not going to go too into it because it does. I do have some personal things that's going along with having a sick family member, which is also kind of why it struck a nerve when I was reading this. Jesus, after letting that out, I might put the lasting impression up to like a 9. So Lewis, being the doctor at a university, Lewis has a traumatic experience on his first day as director of the University of Maine's Campus Health Services. A student, Victor Pascal, and it's highlighted. I would click on it, but again, I'm afraid of spoilers. Victor Pascal suffers a fatal head injury after being struck by an automobile while out for a run. Though he expires in Lewis's examination room, he addresses his dying words personally to Lewis by name, even though they have never met. So this is one of the biggest plot points that confuses me, because why? Why would he have this connection with Lewis? Why is he sidekick? I know everything is connected, so does this guy have a bit of the Shining and is talking to Lois because of a premonition thing? Is it this spiritual kind of connection? Does Lois have the Shining because Ellie might also have a bit of the Shining? Who knows? It's not really explained, but this guy is just walking around like a guide, like a spiritual guide, like what's it called, Dante's Inferno, Virgil. On the night following Pascal's death, Lois is visited by the student's walking conscious corpse, which leads him to the cemetery and refers specifically to the deadfall. Now, this was a little bit confusing, the deadfall. Like, I went through the majority of the book, kind of confused on that little detail. And it finally fully clicked, even though I finished the book, when I did see the movie, what the deadfall looks like. Because it just said, like, oh, it's a wall, and you have to climb over the wall. So I thought it was kind of like a hill type of situation. But no, it's literally a big ass pile of logs and branches that if you try to climb, it'll break underneath you and it'll impale you potentially. Yes, and explains it right here. A dangerous pile of tree and brush limbs that form a barrier at the back of the kid pet cemetery. We'll call it the kid pet cemetery. Pascal warns Lois not to go beyond, no matter how much you feel you need to. Lois wakes up in bed the next morning convinced it was a dream, but discovers his feet and the bed sheets covered with dried mud and pine needles. Lewis dismissed the episode as a result of stress caused by Pascal's death, coupled with his wife's anxieties about death. He accepts the situation as a bout of sleepwalking, which makes sense. Like, at first I was like, dude, it's a horror book, right? You're just backseat kind of narrating sometimes. It's like, dude, you have this dirt and stuff on your feet. How do you explain that? He could have just been walking around his backyard, like not even going into the woods, just getting dirty because he was sleepwalking, which, okay. I don't think I've remember specifically sleepwalking being a thing for me, but I do remember once or twice waking up already when I was like 12, 13, 14 ish, waking up in my room. And apparently, my parents told me to get up and move, and I got up and moved on my own. And that kind of like, whoa, freaked me out and it stayed with me. But yes, compartmentalizing it into sleepwalking is valid. At Halloween, when Judd's wife Norma, I almost forgot about Norma. And the movies, both of them, straight up forgot about Norma. She is non existent. And in the book, she's a bit of a side character, yes. And enough of a side character to where if you're trying to make a sub 2 hour movie of a novel, it does make sense that you would cut her off. But, some things like don't make sense. Like, hey, this traumatic experience where she almost has a heart attack and dies from it. And the the first funeral, which was Norma's funeral. In the original movie, this is the biggest difference. In the original movie, the freaking babysitter straight up takes her own life, and that's the funeral that they attend. What happened? Oh, it's all mixing together. I'm pretty sure it'll come up right here in the plot summary, but that kind of was a little bit of a pivotal moment. I forget what they do. Anyway, we'll continue. Hopefully this will jog my memory. At Halloween, when Judd's wife Norma suffers a near fatal heart attack, and thanks to Lewis's quick intervention, Norma recovers. Judd is grateful for Lewis's help. Okay, yes, this is the pivotal moment because he feels like he owes Lewis a life debt, essentially. And because of the influence of the actual graveyard, the big boy graveyard, so to speak, that is what gets this whole ball rolling, and that's why Lewis thinks it's his fault later on in the story. At Thanksgiving, not Halloween, because the movie kind of like puts the instead of having Norma's heart attack be in Halloween, it's when Church dies. Anyway, we're sticking to the book. At Thanksgiving, Church is found dead on Judd's lawn, presumably struck by a passing vehicle. Rachel and the children are visiting her parents in Chicago, and Lewis frets over breaking the news to Ellie because at this point they've developed enough of a relationship, Judd and Ellie, for Judd to feel super bad for Ellie's cat, because the movie doesn't really, you don't have time to establish that. But yes, Lewis frets over breaking the news to Ellie. Oh wait, Lewis, not Judd. Judd and Ellie. Sorry, I got that mixed up. Judd and Ellie's relationship develops better in the book, where it's almost like a grandfatherly figure. Judd then decides to take him to the pet cemetery, supposedly to bury Church. Instead, Judge leads Lewis a few miles beyond the deadfall, with specific instructions not to stop or look down while they walk over the hazardous pile of basically branches to the real cemetery. So there's a kid's cemetery, and then there's a real cemetery, an ancient burial ground that was once used by the McCamps. I have not read that word in the book. It says McCamps, right? A local Native American tribe. The burial ground lies on top of a rock hill that the Micmacs, right here, Micmacs, yes. I don't know if this is the same word, but yes, Micmacs. At the Micmacs has chiseled and sanded down and has a number of cairns, which is like stones that are used almost like a gravestone. Small piles of stones shaped like cones. Following Judd's meticulous instruction, Lois buries the cat and constructs a cairn built from only the stones he took out from the hole he dug. The next afternoon, Church returns home, And the way this scene is written in the book, probably the most relatable out of Lewis, what Lewis did, because he's just working on something in a garage. He goes to see Church. Oh shit, Church is back. What the fuck? Church is back. And he just stares at it, kind of scared, not knowing what to do, freezes, doesn't freak out. There's no jump scare like in the movie. It's just straight disbelief, like, what the fuck am I watching? Church returns home. However, while he used to be vibrant and lively, oh, we also skipped over that they fixed him. I was gonna say castrate, but uh uh they fixed Church, which they say that they took him a long time to neuter Church because he wanted him because he was his boy, right? Same thing with my dog. I took a long time to kind of like to neuter my dog because it was my boy. I wanted him to be fully intact, and I was afraid that he would change dramatically, and he doesn't. They just, it's healthier. Spay and neuter your pets. Just do it. But yeah, it took him a while to neuter him, but now that he is back, he now acts strangely and a little dead, in Lewis's words. Church hunts for mice and birds much more often, but rips them apart without eating them. The cat also gives off an unpleasant odor. Lewis is disturbed by Church's resurrection and begins to regret his decision. Sometimes dead is better. Judd tells Lewis about his dog Spot. Did they change that in one of the movies? So his dog is Spot, and in one of the movies, I think his dog was actually Biffer. Biffer, hell of a sniffer. Anyway, Lewis's dog, Spot, who was brought back to life in the same manner when Judd was 12. Lewis asks if a person has ever been buried in the Micmac grounds, to which he suddenly is startled, and Judd answers vehemently, no. Which you can already tell Lewis is gonna fucking do that. Even if you knew nothing about Pet Sematary and you read up to that point, I'm pretty sure you can put two and two together. Somebody's gonna die, and he's going to bury them, a person. Several months later, Gage, who had just learned how to walk, trigger warning. This was actually like a trigger warning because this sucks, especially if you're a parent. It involves child passing away. Several months later, Gage, who had just learned to walk, is run over on the road by a speeding truck. Both Rachel... real quick. Pause right here. This is a serious moment. It sucks. It's one of the worst things that can happen to anybody if you're a parent. But I just kept picturing heavy rain in this part, where it shows a parent jumping for a kid before they're struck by a vehicle. It's not funny, but that was pretty funny. My brain it's morbid at times, or just brain rot, meme rot, whatever you want to call it. Both Rachel and Ellie and Lewis, I'm pretty sure, Lewis too, sink into a deep depression. At Gage's wake, Rachel's father, Irwin, piece of shit, who never respected Lewis or his daughter's decision to marry him, berates Lewis harshly, blaming Lewis for the boy's death. The two fight in the funeral. Lewis actually throws a first punch, and I would have thrown a lot more. Like, not. This is not anything to my father-in-law. My father-in-law, he's great. But if this was another situation, another life where I had another dude that acts the way fucking Irwin acts, if I had Irwin, if Irwin specifically was my stepfather, I would have beat the brakes out of this guy for what he said. Who never respected Lois' daughter's berates harshly, blaming Lois for the boy's death. The two fight in the funeral's home, and Irwin kind of kicks his ass. And kicks Lewis's ass, and he kind of lets it happen because he's just so beaten, so down, so depressed. So he kind of lets it happen, but I don't know that if he would ever had needed an excuse to fight him, that would have probably been justified. But then again, Rachel's there, Ellie's there, everybody that loved the kid is there. It's just a shitty situation, and it's one that I don't personally have experience, but I have witnessed this level of grief due to my job, and that's all I will say. The two fight at the funeral home's viewing room and upset the casket. Rachel witnesses the fight and becomes hysterical. And there's a point where it says that when the casket fell, Lewis is able to see a glimpse of the hand, the gray hand, and oh, that kind of like stood out in the story. And they did a really good job in the original adaptation on showing that scene. And I was like, whoa, like straight out of the pages. Overcome with grief and despair, Lois considers bringing his son back to life with the power of the burial ground. Judd, guessing what Lewis is planning, attempts to dissuade him by telling him another story of the burial ground, that of Timmy Baterman, a young man from Ludwell who was killed charging a machine gun nest on the road to Rome during World War II. His father, Bill Baterman, stole his son's body. I forgot. I probably. What do you mean stole his son? Oh, yeah. Okay. He stole his son's body, buried it in the Micmac ground, because I thought they gave him the body and he just straight up took him to the burial ground, but I guess he was at a morgue kind of deal. Stole his son's body and buried it in the Micmac ground, returning him to life. He is seen by terrified townsfolk soon thereafter. Judd describes Timmy's behavior. He'd acted much like Church had, wandering along the road near his and his father's home, unable to speak and having a haunted look in his face. Judd and the three of his friends went to the Baterman house to confront the pair, but Timmy, I just pictured Timmy Turner from Timmy Turner from Fairly Odd Parents, but Timmy, speaking for the first time since his resurrection, confronted each of them with indiscretions that they had committed, incidents Timmy couldn't possibly had any knowledge of, thus giving the impression that the resurrected Timmy was actually some sort of demon who had possessed Timmy's body. Judd and his friends fled the house horrified, and Bill shot his son and burned his house to the ground, killing himself. And the way they describe what he said to each individual person, it doesn't so it I think there was, if there was four guys, yeah, Judd and three of his friends, it only mentions what he said to two of them, and then not the other two, and then he didn't say anything that was said to Judd. But at a certain point, Judd admits, I think it's later on, so I probably won't talk too much about it, but Judd explains that he did cheat on Norma. We'll get into that later on, but what is said from the demon that possesses the dead bodies is so, like, I don't know if grotesque is the right word. Raunchy. Raunchy's probably the better term for it. They cut that out of the movie, and I don't know if the 2019 one does it, but if they make a new remake and they add that part, because I love what they're doing with Carrie, and they're doing another kind of reboot, but they're doing HBO episodes, and I think episodic adaptations of books is the way to go. Not movies, episodic adaptations. If you really want to crank out money from people, then have the finale be in theaters. But this is awesome, and I hope they do this with Pet Sematary. Is what the dead person says is the truth for the people that they encounter. Judd concludes that Gage died because he showed Lewis the burial ground. There are hints that at some point the burial ground was used for victims of cannibalism and that it became the haunt of the Wendigo, a terrible creature of the forest whose mere presence gives men a taste for the flesh of their own kind. And I just realized they alluded to that in the original adaptation when Judd or when Gage comes back and eats Judd's face. That's really good. That's actually good for a movie adaptation. I don't think they mention if any of the dead has eaten any person that was alive while they came back. But anyway, in Judd's words, the ground had gone sour and now corrupts any animal or person buried there. Despite Judd's warning and his own reservation, Lewis's grief and guilt spur him to carry out his plan. Lewis has Rachel and Ellie visit her parents in Chicago again, and it took a long time, but them thinking that uh, Lewis is gonna hurt himself is actually a good like thought process. Has Rachel and Ellie visit parents in Chicago again, not telling them of his intention. Lewis will bury Gage and then spend a couple of days with him in private to diagnose his son's behavior. If Gage acts like Timmy Baterman has, Lewis will euthanize his son, which I'm surprised euthanization works on corpses or zombies because I feel like it wouldn't have, and you would have to like hit them in the head or decapitate them or something like that. I didn't think euthanization would help because I wouldn't think that their hearts would be pumping blood because of the smell. The smell indicates rot, and rot indicates dying, and dying indicates that no blood is flowing. But anyway, euthanization does, ultimately end up working. Uh, Lewis will euthanize his son. Lewis exhumes Gage's body and takes him to the burial site along with the trail. And I feel like I don't know if it was a chapter or this whole section, it was several pages long. And it was just him getting his stuff, going to the store, grabbing his stuff, getting his stuff in the car, driving to the cemetery, lugging his stuff over the gate, climbing over the tree, kind of like hiding from a potential car or police unit. He jumps down, almost impales himself. He walks up to the cemetery, starts digging out, etc., etc., etc. He ends up digging him out and pulls him out and calls back. I get it. It felt like it was a little too long. That part was a little too wordy for me. Like it's one of those memes or jokes or kind of like I forget what the word is, but like when your artsy fartsy English teacher says, "What's the symbolism of the curtains that are blue?" What does blue mean in the eyes of the character and the author when the author's intentions were just like, dude, the curtains are blue. It's just thing. That's one of the things I feel like could have been tweaked where like, hey, he goes to the cemetery, jumps the fence, hides, yes. It just felt a little too long. Lewis exhumes Gage's body and takes him to the burial site. That was one sentence. Along the trail, the Wendigo nearly frightens him. Also, the way that they describe the Wendigo without directly showing you, quote unquote, as far as you can show in the book, that's also was a little confusing at times because I was like, was there actually a Wendigo or not? And I'm pretty sure that was probably the intention, but I wanted to verify, nearly frightens him away, but the Wendigo nearly frightens him away, but Lewis's determination combined with the power of the burial site that's basically luring him. It's like the ring, like it wills you to do what it wants you to do, keeps him moving. Ellie has a nightmare featuring Victor Pascal on the flight to Chicago. Ellie specifically mentions Victor Pascal mispronouncing his name Paxcal, and now he and how he confided his warning to Lewis before his soul discorporated, which is something I had to look up. Discorporated, basically left. This because of Ellie's near hysteria and an agreement between Rachel and her daughter as to Lewis's behavior, Rachel attempts to fly back to Maine but misses her connecting flight at Boston and decides to drive the rest of the distance. Lewis buries Gage at the burial ground. Now, this is the part where it was just a paragraph and I almost missed it. You have basically a whole chapter of him digging him out of a cemetery, but when it comes to actually burying him in the pet cemetery, it's going to be a little paragraph. It's kind of like backwards. Also, there's like a 2-page daydream about Disney World out of nowhere in the middle of this chapter. I think it was here. But again, pacing was a little bit off towards the end, but it still, nonetheless, we're getting to the climax of the book. Gage returns as a demonic shadow of his former self, able to talk like an adult in a baby's voice. He sneaks into his old home and steals a scalpel from Lewis's medical bag. Lewis, in a deep sleep after returning from the burial ground, is repulsed by Gage's foul odor while unconscious, but does not wake up. I might have missed that little part. Gage sneaks into Judd's house and taunts Judd about his wife's implied infidelity. This is another one of those horrible things that the dead speak to the living. And I wonder if there ever is going to be a Pet Sematary remake, if they'll add this part to it, because it's just morbid how the dead speak. Then Gage kills Judd with Lewis's scalpel. When Rachel arrives, this is something I didn't see coming, because for whatever reason, from what I knew from Pet Sematary, from like my raw memory and what I did know about Pet Sematary, is I thought it was going to be Lewis is waiting at his home after. So I thought Gage kills Judd, then he walks over to Lewis's house, and they have like this fake heart to heart, and that's when Rachel walks in, sees Judd alive, and is just absolutely horrified. She either runs away or she's the one that ends up killing Judd or Gage. But no, Rachel dies when she arrives at Judd's house. Okay, back to the wiki. When Rachel arrives at Judd's house, Gage kills her also, and it is implied partially eats her corpse. So again, it's implied, but it's not directly stated that if you come back from the Pet Cemetery, you're actually one of the cannibals, or a demon that's a cannibal, or a Wendigo demon. I don't know. Lewis kills Church and Gage with a fatal dose of morphine, which I'm surprised works, and then grieves for his son for an unknown amount of time while sitting in the corner of the hallway. Lewis, pushed to the edge of sanity and having prematurely aged with shockingly white hair, burns down Judd's house, then carries Rachel's body to the burial ground, saying that he waited too long with Gage, but is confident that Rachel will come back the same as before. After Lewis returns home exhausted, he is questioned by investigators about the fire and revealing nothing about his involvement. Lewis waits until nightfall for Rachel to return, playing solitaire. He hears his resurrected wife walk into the house. A hand falls on his shoulder, and his wife greets him with "darling," but she speaks as if her mouth is full of gravel and dirt. So that's the ending, right? Just having somebody walk up to you while you're just playing solitaire, right? The hand falls on your shoulder, and it ends with "darling." and then cue the goosebumps music, because that did feel like a goosebump ending, right? Like with a little twist where, I mean, it's a twist you see coming, but I don't know. But how else are you gonna end it? Like, a story has to end at some point, and I mean, might as well just, who knows if this is actually um Rachel or if this is a demon. The movie does a more of a decisive. Wait a minute. Now that I think of it, probably not, because in the movie it does the same thing. Rachel comes back. He actually turns to see her. I think she says "darling," and then Lewis stands up and starts hugging her. And as Lewis is hugging Rachel after she returned in the movie, she's picking up a knife when it ends, right? She's picking up a knife, so you kind of like put two and two together and says like, oh, clearly that's not Rachel, that's a demon. But what if it is Rachel and she saw what Lewis did and what Lewis is capable of, and it's Rachel herself back from the dead, making sure that he doesn't do anything like that again. But that's in the movie. As far as the book, it doesn't go in specific on what happens, or if just the darling part is supposed to leave it up in the air as to whether or not it is actually Rachel that's returned. So that's it for the plot summary. There's actually a little bit more here with the adaptation. I'll go over it right now. The story was adapted into film in 1989 that followed the original story quite closely, very closely, like fairly surprisingly good for a movie adaptation. As far as movie adaptations, like books, I think the top one is going to be Dune, but this was very, very good as far as a movie adaptation from a book. The screenplay was written by King himself, which is surprising. Like, wow, I don't know why he would cut out Norma or some of the stuff. I mean, yes, it's a sub 2 hour movie, so you gotta cut what you gotta cut, but he did a very, very, very well, very, very good job. King himself and makes a cameo appearance in the film, which is in the trailer, and I don't know if that was a trailer that was used originally in 1989, but he's in the trailer, so it's kind of like it's like Stephen King is like, oh, Lee, why? Oh my God, I can't believe I'm butchering his name. I am. Oh, Stan Lee. Stan Lee. I swear I didn't look it up. It just came to me. Stephen King is like Stan Lee as far as his movies go. I don't know if he's in the 2019 one or in The Shining or whatnot, but he makes a cameo like Stan Lee, but it's in the trailer, and I feel like it should have been a surprise in the movie. He appears in the film as a priest at a funeral service. The critically acclaimed movie adaptation did far worse than expected in the box office. Really? Some thought, due to the sheer darkness of some of the scenes, yeah, featuring the living dead, that are a result of the location of burial. That are a result, I guess, because the living dead, that are a result of the location of the burial. Anyway, a few alterations were made to the story. Most importantly, that Judge wife Norma does not exist, is not present, and a substitute character, Mrs. Danbridge, which I thought was the babysitter who does the housekeeping for the Creeds, commits suicide. The character's actions are used to explain Rachel's aversion to death. I thought it was, no, they show the sister, which is actually a really like creepy visual. But again, I thought they should have had like younger character, like a bigger sister, like a big sister kind of situation. But I feel like that probably would also be way darker than what the movie already was for 1989, and it might have done even worse at the box office. So I can see why they kind of had to censor the horror factor of it a little bit more. But with these HBO shows that are coming out from Welcome to Derry and potentially Carrie, and how dark those get, because for a very, very long time when it came to film and movies, Child death was out of the question. Nobody was touching that. And Welcome to Derry is just, hey, boom, left and right, death, death. So maybe they might come out with a good, really good adaptation of Pet Sematary, but they might change stuff here and there. In the final scene, Rachel returns, still appearing mutilated, and is greeted by Lewis. She then kills him with a kitchen knife. Right here. The story was readapted into a new film in 2019. A prequel. Pet Sematary Bloodlines, based on an untold chapter from the novel, was released in 2023. I did not know that. I'll probably check that out. And then the audiobook, which is what I read. I read the one from Michael C. Hall. But there are 3 audiobook versions of Pet Sematary. One version, which is abridged, is read by a full ensemble cast. I want to check that out, actually. Another version, which is unabridged, is read by Mirren Smith. The third is also unabridged, and is the one that I personally read or listened to, and is read by Michael C. Hall, the star of the television series Dexter. And the main quote for the entire series, or the entire book and movies, is, "The soil of a man's heart is stonier." And that's it. That's it for the plot. That's it for the summary. That's it for my review and my rating. So, anybody watching, hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one, which is actually, it's going to be Carrie. So if you want to follow these reviews, kind of like a book club, the next one, as far as what I'm reading after this review, or what I'm currently reading, is going to be Carrie. Now, I have this huge book that is the adaptation of, actually, let me get the dust cover. It is a Stephen King collection, with The Shining being the main lore of this edition of Stephen King collection. And I haven't really searched for any other collections of Stephen King, but this one is kind of out of order, where Carrie was his first one, and I wanted Carrie to be the first story in this book because it's the last one, as you can tell by the bookmarker there. I did get a Kindle version of the 3-story collection, and it is Carrie, Salem's Lot, and The Shining. Maybe I'm getting 2 of those confused. But regardless, the next review that I'm going to be doing or recording is going to be of Carrie. My vision for these videos and audio, if this ends up being a podcast, is going to be a series version of reviews. I want to review series books back to back. Not necessarily back to back. Maybe I'll transition from one book to another. But the series, quote unquote, that I'm going to be reading for now up to Halloween, maybe even closer to December, is going to be Stephen King books in chronological order from release. And then the next series that I'm going to be tackling is Dungeon Crawler Carl, which I already read the first 2 books and done reviews, but I'm actually going to be putting it in a dedicated series, reviews for it in this format. And next up, I'm going to be rotating. So I've already done reviews kinda for the Red Rising series, but for these podcast or this type of video, I'm going to be doing Stephen King for sure. Maybe Game of Thrones next, or Brandon Sanderson's not Mistborn, but the other one, Stormlight Archive. Because for me, I do get sucked into the book buying hobby of reading. Like, I like buying the books and buying the collections, and that's what I want to do. I like the challenge of starting a series, starting a collection. So this will be kind of like a book club dedicated to established series or ongoing series, or just series in general, or just collection of books like with Stephen King. But next video is going to be Carrie, and then the video after that will probably be a next set of series. Stay tuned. Like I said, if you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Hope you have a good one, and I will see you in the next one.